everyone, welcome to the latest episode of Sean's Movie Crusades. My name is Sean Wasserkrug, and I'm here to review all the latest movies in theaters and streaming, as well as any of you recommend, whether they be recent films or old school movies. Now before we get into today's episode, don't forget to hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel, so that way you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up on the page. Also, don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets that you see below. Now today we're going to be reviewing one of the newer Netflix ones that are actually getting some award recognition, and that is Joel and Ethan Coen's The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Now the Coen brothers is a pretty powerhouse name or tag team of directing in terms of films. I mean, you have obviously their biggest one would easily be No Country for Old Men. I mean, it literally launched Javier Bardem's acting career. You also got Fargo and one of my personal favorite, True Grit. Now with the Coen brothers, some people, they can kind of take it or leave them. They usually do kind of almost like a western-y type of film most of the time. And they have a real lot of dark humor, black comedy, and storytelling to their films. Most importantly is they love to torture their characters quite a bit. And to some people that's a turnoff, and to some people they love that kind of storytelling. But one thing is for sure, with all of their movies, the films look amazing. They are fantastically shot. The scenery shots are beautiful, and I think that's why they love doing westerns or western type films in general, because they have the aesthetics to get those beautiful visuals without really having to try a whole lot. Now with the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, however you want to say that name, I'm pretty sure it's Scruggs. This one's a little unique in its own way. First off, it went right to Netflix instead of theaters, which is a little bit against the grain for the Coen brothers. But this one, instead of it being just a movie about the West, this one is actually 6 individual vignettes or stories about the West. It's basically 6 tales of life and violence in the Old West. One's following a singing gunslinger, another is a bank robber, another one being a traveling artist, another being an elderly prospector, another one following a wagon train, and then last but not least, a unique pair of bounty hunters. Now, we're going to kind of do this review a little bit differently than what I normally do. Normally I go plot, what works, what doesn't work, and overall thoughts. Because these are 6 different stories throughout, I'm just going to kind of go through each story individually and just go from there. So the first story is actually the title of the film, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. To me, actually before I go straight into that, first things first, all 6 stories, like I said earlier, look gorgeous. This movie should have been shot for the big screen. I mean, it was shot for the big screen, but it went to Netflix instead. I wish I could have seen this in theaters and on a huge screen instead of on a TV screen or, for some people, a phone or a tablet, because this movie is so beautifully shot that it just deserves to be seen with a huge landscape of screen instead of such a small screen that most people watch these in. So, let's get that out of the way. It's beautifully shot. Every story is gorgeous to boot. And it deserves to be seen on a big screen, but sadly, no one's really going to get to see that. But yeah, beautifully shot all the way through all 6 films. So like I said, the first story is The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. And to me, it's easily one of the best, if not the most enjoyable story of all of them in the movie. And basically, this follows a singing gunslinger played by Tim Blake Nelson. And it's just kind of a random story of this guy who sings into town and goes to different saloons and trouble arises, and he kind of has to show what he's made of. And that's basically the general plot of this. Tim Blake Nelson does a fantastic job as Buster Scruggs, and he hooks you right into the movie right from the get-go. It literally feels almost like a Bugs Bunny Looney Tunes Western, but real life and not a cartoon. I mean, there's song numbers, there's fourth wall breaking as Buster continually usually talks to us, the viewers, more so than the actual people in the scene with him. And there's a lot of violent humor that you would normally see in something such as Looney Tunes, except that it's actually being done to a real person. It's incredibly shot beautifully well. The aesthetics of the scenes, the violence, Even the song numbers in it are all incredibly enjoyable, and they're well put together. And it made me wish that the whole movie was just based on this one story, because I feel like this story just would have been a phenomenal tale of it being 2 hours long than just like a 15 to 16 minute story. And this one is easily one of the best ones that you guys should definitely go out of your way to try to see, because it was just a pure delight to watch overall. The next story is called Near Algondones. I'm probably saying that wrong, but that's what I'm going to call it. It's Near Algondones. And this is probably the shortest of the 6 stories. And basically it follows a very poor, not poor in terms of money, but poor in terms of his job, bank robber, played by James Franco. And there's not really enough story to go around with this one. The only real reason to watch this one is because it's got James Franco in it. But other than that, there's just not really much else to see here. It's just kind of a Franco walking into a bank trying to rob it, and anyone who's seen the trailers just know it doesn't really go his way. And it's like I said, it's in and out in 5-10 minutes. It's relatively quick. There's just not a whole lot to it. But in terms of cast of big names, he is the second biggest name in the film, and so naturally he's worth a watch just to see James Franco in a Western. The next one is called Meal Ticket, and it is probably the saddest of the 6 stories. And this one follows a traveling artist who's very unique in his own way. And I'm going to kind of hold off saying what makes him unique, even though you guys will find out right away. It follows this traveling artist along with his manager/colleague, who's played by Liam Neeson. And the artist is played by Harry Melling. Now, many people might think Harry Melling looks familiar, and I know I did, so I had to look him up. And this is the actor who plays Dudley Dursley from the Harry Potter franchise. Anyone who knows the Harry Potter movies knows that he plays usually the annoying fat nephew or cousin, cousin of Harry Potter, who usually the Dursleys are the ones that take care of Harry when he's not at Hogwarts, and Dudley is just the worst character outside of probably Malfoy. And so to watch this guy grown up, definitely not that thick imbecile kind of character, and him actually portraying a theater man, artist, it was definitely kind of something to throw you for a loop, because you're just not used to seeing this actor do anything besides this one character from the Harry Potter franchise. And it also stars a very talented chicken. And yes, I said a chicken. While this does have the biggest names in the film being Liam Neeson, he only has a few lines in this whole thing. He mostly just kind of grunts and kind of goes around, and he maybe has 2 or 3 speaking lines in the actual whole story. And this particular story does slow the pace down quite a bit compared to the first 2 stories. And you kind of start seeing this pace slow down pretty much through the rest of the film. This one is more worth a watch if you want to see how the actor Harry Melling does outside of something from playing Dudley Dursley from the Harry Potter franchise, and also the very talented chicken. Liam Neeson, not really that much to write home about in this one. He's just kind of there to be there. But yeah, it's like I said, it's definitely a sad story, and it's a good story overall, and it's one of the few that I actually would recommend watching, if not for the story, but for the cast that's in it. The next story is All Gold Canyon, and this is probably my favorite overall told story. And this one follows a old prospector, and played by Tom Waits, and it's basically him finding this piece of land, and he's just kind of prospecting, trying to find gold, and that's the story. That is the story. It really is a beautiful landscape of visuals, and really just shows how hard a man works for what he's striving to do. Because you're literally watching this man from the beginning find this land, work on the land, and try to find this gold, and just all the work it goes into it, as well as him trying to cook, find food and survive while he's trying to do this. And it's a real good job of building up this kind of a character. Now, while the story is longer and some might feel this one to get a little bit boring. I actually quite enjoyed it. I actually liked the story that it was telling with Tom Waits' character, and there is a twist near the end of the movie that actually, or at the end of this story, that comes near the end, and I actually really liked the ending overall itself, and this was probably, even though Ballad of Buster Scruggs was a lot of fun and enjoyable, and I kind of wish the whole movie was about that story, this story I actually really quite enjoyed on its own, and I don't necessarily dislike this one at all, and that one and Ballad of Buster Scruggs are probably the two most that I would recommend in terms of acting performances, and just a story as a whole. So yeah, the All Gold Canyon, definitely probably my favorite one overall. Next, we got the Girl Who Got Rattled. And this one is easily the longest and driest of the stories, and it really starts to wear on you as a viewer, because basically we started with two stories of Ballad, Buster Scruggs, and the bank robber, where they were kind of just quick, boom, 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 and then it slowed down pace with the meal ticket, and then a Gold Canyon. And this one definitely just really weighs on you in terms of dryness. This story basically is what it would be like if you were watching Oregon Trail, the game, but not nearly as fun. The story mainly follows two characters, and that is one played by Zoe Kazan, and she's basically a woman on her way to Oregon to be married, and the other one follows Bill Heck, who basically plays Billy Knapp. Yeah, his name's Billy Knapp, and he's basically one of the guys that's running the trail. It's well acted, and that goes for all these tales. None of them are poorly acted. They're all fantastically well acted, which I would expect from any Coen Brothers film. And like I said, it feels very much like Oregon Trail, the movie, like I said, without any of the fun stuff that you do up until the very end. But the story almost put me to sleep, because this one literally feels like a 30-minute long episode that no one really asked for. And while it does tell a good story, it's just real dry and just slows down the pace of the film to a dead halt compared to the previous 4 stories that we already had. The ending does get some action into it, which adds a much-needed jolt and a wake-up compared to what we were watching. But yeah, this is definitely one of the weakest ones. It's not the weakest, but it's definitely one of the weakest ones. Even though it is well acted, it's just not up to par with the previous 4 tales. And then we get to the final one, which is called The Mortal Remains. And this one still kind of puzzles me as to why they put this one on last, as we just got done with the longest and slowest story with The Girl Who Got Rattled. This one is probably the most annoying, and it's a chore to get through. It's not nearly as long as the last 3 stories. It is probably just a little bit longer, if not right around the same time frame as the bank robber. And this one basically follows these 5 people, all in a wagon traveling to a hotel. And these are the actors. You got John Joe O'Neill, Brandon Gleeson, who are bounty hunters, and then you got Sal Rubinek, Tiny Daly. I'm saying her name wrong. I'm sorry. And Chelsea Ross. And basically, it's just them kind of just all sitting in the wagon and talking and over each other and nagging back and forth and singing, and it's just kind of a jumbled mess of like 5 people trying to talk over one another. And while I do commend the actors for the level of dialogue they had to deliver, at this point of the film, I was just wanting this movie to be over, and all the talking over each other really made me just want to fast forward through the story to the end of the movie overall. The only good thing about this story is the color palette of how the ride in the wagon, at least outside the windows, as you're watching these guys all talk over each other with nonsense, how the color palette changes from day to night. It's real beautiful in terms of that. But, I mean, other than that, the story starts to slightly get interesting in the last half of it, but of course, right when it does start to get interesting, the story ends, as well as the movie. So that's all 6 tales of the Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Overall, I thought this movie probably would have worked best as a TV series, almost like a Western version of Black Mirror, where each episode or each tale would have gotten their own 30-minute to hour-long episode of just being individual, instead of them all being kind of corralled into one overall movie. Some of the stories, like I said, are worth checking out. Like I said, Ballad of Buster Scruggs, All Gold Canyon, and Meal Ticket are definitely worth checking out. Whereas the others, such as Bank Robber, The Girl Who Got Rattled, and Mortal Remains, probably you could just either fast forward through or just kind of bypass them altogether. So like I said, overall, like I said, the Coen Brothers film, it's incredibly well shot, it's incredibly well acted. But like I said, the flow of the movie is kind of up and down with the different kinds of tales. They're all unique and different in their own way, and some stories will appeal to certain people over others. Like for me, 3 of them worked, 3 others were okay to, I don't want to watch these. Mainly there was only one I really just didn't care to watch. One was just really slow, but I commended how good it was. And then the other one was just too quick to really delve into. But like I said, the other 3, the ones that really did work, I say go out of your way to try to watch them, especially Ballad of Buster Scruggs and All Gold Canyon, as they are 2 of the best small, short little movie stories of 2018. And yeah, so I mean, that's kind of the Ballad of Buster Scruggs in a nutshell. A bunch of six different stories, some work, some don't, but overall, looks gorgeous, shot beautifully, and incredibly well acted, and has a lot of dark humor, black comedy, but is an overall enjoyment completely. So that's kind of where it goes, depending on where you are as a person, whether you like Westerns, or you don't like Westerns, or you're a Coen Brothers fan, or you're not a Coen Brothers fan. That kind of lies the line on whether or not I would recommend this movie to you, or whether or not you would actually enjoy the movie overall. So that about does it. I hope you guys liked the review overall. If you guys did, go ahead and hit that like button. If you feel like this review is worth sharing, go ahead and hit that share button as well. But most importantly, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to the channel, so that way you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up on the page. And also don't forget to follow us at all the social media outlets you see below. And until next time, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.